Why must there be one purpose in life?
Good question. Why must there be one purpose in life? Okay. What I've been doing is I've been drawing a contrast between atheism and theism. Atheism says there is no God, which means there is no purpose or purposes ultimately in life. It's all a chance, accident. Theism, polytheism, monotheism, says because there is a creator who made you for a purpose, there is a purpose to life.
Right.
So, the question is then, if you're a theist, who's the God you believe in, and what does this God or gods say the purpose or the purposes of life really are?
Well, I suppose at the moment right now I am not a theist. I'm not a theist, so I guess in a way atheist. But I guess the question is, if I don't see that there is evidence for a God to exist, why is it such an impossible thing to have no purpose in life?
Well, you're right. If there is no God, there's no purpose to life, ultimately. You can create your own purpose or purposes, which is your choice. But what you have to acknowledge is that's totally relative. It's ultimately meaningless. It's just something you've created in your head. Because in reality, your life is a cosmic accident. That's reality.
That is reality.
Okay. So then, as Albert Camus pointed out, the only question modern man must answer is, why not commit suicide? Why continue to suck wind? Why?
Well, I suppose because maybe people put this question off until very later in life.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was awesome, man. Because I don't want to think about the deeper questions of human existence. So I will put those deep questions off till later on in life. That is beautiful.
Pretty sure many people around us have maybe a slight inclination to do so.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
And that is why people don't go suiciding left and right.
That's right, because they don't think. Correct. That is very well put. You said it, not me. All right, so I know why my atheist friends have hope, because they've taken an anesthesia called apathy, I don't care, or they're doing an acting job that is worthy of an Academy Award. Let's just act like there's a future for me that's good. Let's just pretend.
Well,
Let's just get into positive thinking, because I don't like to think negatively. It doesn't lead to good places, so I'm just going to think positively.
I wouldn't call them acting. I would more say that is, and if I give it a negative word, I would call it delusional.
Okay,
I
delusional.
wouldn't say that they have bad intentions, right?
Okay.
They believe what they're doing is right and justifiable and purposeful to themselves,
Right.
And if, most of the people in this world that are grown out of our society are sort of brainwashed into thinking that being in our standards, a decent human being is what they should do, and they don't think twice about it, and they don't question it that much, then wouldn't the world be, just the way as it is right now?
The world is the way it is right now because people have freely made decisions. You make your decisions, I make my decisions, and those decisions have consequences. So.
And I suppose the question is just, what is the difference from a person making a decision saying that I do not believe in God, or I maybe believe in God, or I do believe in God? What is the difference if the person that says, I do believe in God, might also be in a delusional sense that they're choosing the right decision. But, you know,
Well, the evidence is God exists. That's why a person who puts their faith in God is not delusional. That evidence is order and design, points to a designer. Moral absolutes point to a moral lawgiver. The innate human ability to love points to the fact that there's more to us than just matter and energy. We have this innate ability to love. Fourthly, the evidence of an innate drive for meaning in life points us to the fact that life is not ultimately a crapshoot. We all are hardwired for meaning and purpose in life. Fifthly, the evidence of free will shows us that there's a lot more to human beings than just complex biochemical reactions. There's a me, there's a you, and we can respect each other or we can disrespect each other. We don't have to do either.
You're right.
So there's plenty of evidence that there is some type of God.
I can say many things about the points you've addressed, but I suppose I'll choose two to talk about.
All right.
First is your innate hardwire of the desire to have a purpose,
Yes.
right? What I would say to this might be, if people were randomly generated, and there were people that randomly got wired into having a purposeful drive, and there were people who got wired, randomly into not having a purpose drive, then perhaps the people with less purpose, either or less successful in life, suicided, less achieving, have less babies, have less human interactions, to pass off their type of behavior. And a person with more purpose innately lived out a life that is more influential. People like him. People get influenced by him. People follow him, right? And that's why Christianity, true or not true, is nevertheless a very powerful social tool.
All right, fascinating point. Let Stuart address it. When Theodore Roosevelt was President of the United States, he would often invite friends to eat with him at the White House. After dinner, when it was dark outside, Theodore Roosevelt would take his guest out on the back lawn behind the White House. He would find a star in the night sky, point at it, and say, "That is the spiral galaxy in the constellation Andromeda. It is as large as our Milky Way. It is one of 100 million galaxies. It consists of 100 billion suns, each larger than our own sun." Then Theodore Roosevelt, President of the United States, would grin and say, "Now I think we are small enough. Let's retire." That's humility. Humility is an accurate understanding of how big God is and how small I am, how incredibly significant God is, and how significant God has made me. He's created you and me in His likeness, in His image. Humility is not getting trapped in self-degradation. Humility is learning to deny my self-centeredness and come alive in Christ, come alive to be the person that God created me to be. In other words, humility is saying, "God, you're the one who made me. What did you make me to do? What is your purpose for me? I want to do your will. I want to live out the purpose for which you made me." You see, life is not a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury signifying nothing, and therefore I should feel free to create whatever I want to out of my life. No, life is a precious, significant gift that God has blessed you and me with. And He's blessed us with this gift for a purpose. To love Him with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, to love our neighbor as ourselves. Repeatedly, the Bible communicates, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. When I am proud, I am pushing God away. When I am proud, I am pushing people away. If I am consumed by my own agenda, if I am self-absorbed, if I'm approaching narcissism, I am a pain in the neck to be around. If it's all about me, if it's all about my agenda, if it's all about using you to accomplish my agenda, I am a self-absorbed twit. And you won't want to be around me very long, and I can promise you, I'm not going to want to be around God. And that is why C.S. Lewis, in his magnificent book, Mere Christianity, has a title of a chapter, The Great Sin. The great sin is pride. It is elevating myself above God. It is elevating myself above other people and looking down on God, looking down on others. But when I learn to look up at God, when I learn to look eyeball to eyeball with another human being, respecting and loving them as creatures created in the image of God, that is true humility. And that leads to depth of relationship. Think about marriage. What dynamites the majority of marriages right out of the water? Selfishness, self-centeredness, pride, self-absorption. Humility is not thinking less about myself. Humility is thinking less often about myself. And what that allows for is space for me to enjoy you, for me to give you my attention, for me to listen to you, for me to consider how I can meet your needs and help you get ahead in life. And there is no greater example of humility than Jesus Christ. He was God, the creator of this cosmos, the cosmos that President Theodore Roosevelt used to love to look up at late at night when it was dark outside and the stars were shining. And when he began to grapple with the vastness of the cosmos, he began to realize how absurd, how stupid, how foolishness human pride and arrogance are. And he learned to humble himself before the universe, before the God who created the universe. Jesus Christ humbled himself, became a human being. He washed his disciples' feet, and ultimately he allowed human beings to nail him to a cross, and he bled and died on that cross for you and for me, to forgive us and to give us the gift of life with God now and for eternity in heaven. Have you accepted that gift that Jesus Christ offers? In order to accept that gift, you do have to humble yourself. You have to humbly ask him for forgiveness. You have to put your faith and trust in him and allow him to be God, and then you go ahead and be the wonderful person that God created you to be in his likeness. God bless you as you make that most important decision.
Let's drop the theoretical as well as the extremism for a second. We'll leave Nietzsche, Camus out of it in terms of the suicidal piece if we have no purpose, and we'll drop the theoretical hardwiring for a second. Let's make this real practical. I'm a psychotherapist, and purpose and meaning is pretty big in the psychotherapy office, let me tell you. Very big. Would you agree with that? At the end of the day, okay, maybe you haven't been in the office, good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, psychotherapists now, one of their top, I'd say 3, for many it's their number 1 question is, what's your spirituality? What's your meaning and purpose? So someone at Stanford, one of the top psychotherapists today is Irvin Yalom. I would check out his stuff. He's not a Christian, but he's still saying you need to wrestle with your meaning and purpose. You have to do it, and it should be on an eternal level. Check out the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. People who got out of the prisoner of war camps, the Nazi camps during World War II, were those who put their faith in an eternal realm. Call it what you will. But if you just wake up every morning and say, my meaning and purpose is simply just to get to class, to tie my shoes, and then that'll be, we'll call it quits for the day. When I am counseling a depressed or severely anxious person, if I simply stay on the horizontal plane of meaning and purpose, that person is typically in a lot of trouble because they do not enjoy their existence on the horizontal level. There has to be some vertical connection to a God, to eternal bliss of some sort, in order for them typically to seek health further than just the Band-Aid, the therapeutic Band-Aid. And most recently, I love David Foster Wallace, who wrote Infinite Jest. I'm sure many of you have read a lot of his stuff. He passed away a few years ago. He put this beautifully, and he said, if man and woman truly worship things on earth, which they do, everyone worships, he said, and I don't think he's a Christian. If it is something on earth that you worship at the end of the day, it will eat you alive. He ended up killing himself. There was mental disorder involved, but that's a beautiful point. Whatever we worship on earth, at the end of the day, will be bankrupt at some point because we're finite beings. If it's an eternal reality, it is entirely more durable. It is not saying, though, that someone who is not a Christian will commit suicide.
I agree with you. Yes, I agree that having looking onto something eternal is much more durable, perhaps because it is eternal. What I'm trying to say is...
Have you seen 13 Reasons? The show 13 Reasons?
I have not, sorry.
Which talks about basically the celebration of humanity's right to freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. And so, if you want to live, if you want to die, at the end of the day, it's personal choice.
Right.
And on UVA's campus, this was actually quite surprising. There were a group of friends who allowed another friend to end his life because they wanted to save his freedom of choice before it superseded his physical existence. Okay. So there is a real problem at the end of the day if we don't have some higher moral standard than simply personal freedom and choice. And that's connected with meaning and purpose.
Yes. How does that make God real? You know?
Okay, so we're getting back to...
It definitely...
It doesn't make God real.
Yeah, a promise that promises you...
If it's workable, it still does not make God real.
Yes,
it has to be experiential and evidential. Did you want?
Sir, it's real simple. I told you that the drive for meaning that we all have is one piece of evidence that God exists. Because if there is no God, there's no ultimate meaning in life. But when you look around at human beings, you see we are hardwired for meaning. And if we are atheists and believe there is no ultimate meaning to life, why is it that we consistently, every atheist friend of mine, consistently attaches meaning to her or his life? We have to search for meaning. Does that not posit that it's more reasonable to believe that we were created for a purpose? That there is something that can satisfy this deep human longing around the world, cross-cultural, every culture. We human beings have this innate drive for meaning and purpose. That's all we're saying.
Yes, I know, but what I'm saying is that the higher meaning in life is not only much more appealing to people, it is much more promising and much more comforting, and that, I suspect, might be the reason why people have a drive to go and believe such things. Not because we were created to do so, but because of the options laid in front of us, we are prone to choose the juiciest apple of the bunch. Juiciest apple. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you've already pointed out that your atheist friends refuse to think. Instead, they choose to escape the question of meaning, that life is meaningless, and then you said, it wasn't me, you said, but then at the end of their life, maybe they're willing to deal with it then. And I said, fine. So it sounds like the majority of my atheist friends and your atheist friends are doing an acting job worthy of an Academy Award. Let's just escape the deeper questions of life. Let's not deal with them until maybe we're just about to die. That's escapism, sir. Or what we're doing is we're taking an anesthesia called apathy, which means I really don't care that my life is meaningless. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to reflect on that. I'm just going to be apathetic. And my point to you, sir, is that's tragic. You're a thinking human being. Start thinking.
What I'm trying to say is that they're not refusing to think because they avoid it. It's more as, they don't have enough experiences in life to stimulate them to do so. There's no drive for them to think more than they already do. But the main point is...
Now that's a cop-out. You know why that's a cop-out?
Why?
Because every atheist, every agnostic, every theist who's not committing suicide has a faith that something is worth living for. That's why they suck wind. That's why they eat 3 meals a day. That's why they take care of themselves.
But that's not really my point. My point is that the same exact thing goes for believers, right? Perhaps believers are, okay, my point is a lot of people don't think atheists or believers right? Atheists don't think about the meaning of life, and they just put it off, and they just, they can do those things. But believers, on the other hand, they do the exact same thing.
Okay.
They choose the most convenient apple in front of them, and they stick to it, and they don't think twice about it.
That's
Maybe
not
perhaps-
true. I'm standing out here giving you evidence that God exists. I'm not saying just bite the most delicious apple. That's not the point. The point is order and design points to an intelligent designer. Second point, moral law points to a moral lawgiver. Third point, the experience of love shows us that there's more to reality than just matter and energy. Reality includes a personal God who created us with his ability to love. Fourthly, the innate human drive for meaning points us to the fact that indeed we were made for a purpose. We all long to understand purpose and meaning in life. So those are 4 pieces of evidence, not proofs. I never said that. Never used the word proof. It's not a proof. But it's solid evidence that indeed some type of God exists. What is the solution to America's problems? I am convinced it's not the conservative agenda, it's not the liberal agenda. Rather, the solution to America's problems is Jesus Christ. What does that mean? No politician, no legislative body can change your heart, can change your character. That takes God. That takes Christ. And one of the ways that Jesus wants to change America, change all societies, all cultures, is by building stronger families. A strong family is based on a marriage that's healthy and parenting that is good. A healthy marriage comes when both spouses are allowing God, allowing Christ to meet their deepest emotional, spiritual, and psychological needs. If you think that your spouse can meet your deepest needs, you're sadly mistaken. If I think that my spouse can meet my deepest emotional, spiritual, and psychological needs, I am sadly mistaken. It is not fair to depend upon one spouse to meet the deepest needs of your life. It ain't going to happen. Our spouses are tremendous gifts from God, but they're not God. And if they're placed in the number one spot in your life or in my life, that will lead to keen disappointment, frustration, and stress. An African proverb puts it well when it says, "When the elephants fight, the grass is crushed. When mom and dad fight, children are crushed, hurt deeply." That should cause us to pause before fighting and to figure out how we can bring about compromise, peace, how we can allow love to flow instead of animosity. What a challenge it is to build strong families, especially in light of the fact that opposites attract. I'll never forget coaching soccer for kindergartners. My son was on the team, and he was one of the aggressive children who ran after the ball, tried as hard as he could to kick it into the goal. He was joined by many young ladies, girls, and young men, boys, in that endeavor. But my defense had a problem. The boys and girls on defense liked to sit down on the lawn, on the grass, and find 4-leaf clovers. It almost made me pull my hair out, as the offense of the other team would come breathing down on them, and they'd be sitting there looking for 4-leaf clovers. Many of us are very spontaneous, very laid back, very chill. Others of us are aggressive, hard-driving, type A personalities. When you put those two together, wow, that can lead to some real misunderstanding and stress and pressure and disagreement. So a good marriage is comprised of two people who are willing to accept each other the way we are. We're willing to bear with each other, which means to give the other person space to be different and unique. We're to be patient with each other and to cut each other slack, and we are to forgive each other, which means to absorb the pain and not lash back in revenge. Yes, that is the quality of love, a love that accepts, a love that bears, a love that's patient, a love that forgives. That's the quality of love that Christ wants to use to glue our marriages solidly together. Recently, my oldest son asked me, "Dad, what was the most important lesson that Grandpa and Grandma taught you?" I thought a moment and responded rather quickly. Dad had a passionate love for Christ. Dad understood that God loved him more than anybody else in the whole universe loved him. And because of that, Dad responded to God's love. Grandpa responded to God's love with a passionate love. And he modeled that for his 6 children, and he taught us to love Jesus more than anyone. And that's exactly what Jesus said is the purpose of life. To love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And Mom, your grandma, Robert, well, she taught us an accurate definition of success. She played 5 sports in college. She was quite the athlete. She served as a nurse at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. She had an amazing intellect and incredibly athletic body. But she was wise enough and committed enough to Christ to understand the true definition of success, which is not to be number 1 athletically, and it's not to have the highest GPA in school. Instead, success is faithfulness. Faithfulness is taking all that God has given you and using it to serve God by serving others. Faithfulness is the peace that comes from knowing you did the best you could in that situation. Success is not measured by where you stand in the pecking order. Success is not measured by, do you have the corner office with the best view? Success is measured not by the size of your house or the cost of your car. Instead, success is living to glorify God in everything, living to serve people to the best of your ability, understanding that the real purpose of life is to love God and to love others, to move out of self-absorption into giving your life away in serving others. And that is exactly what Jesus Christ did. He gave his life away in serving others, and ultimately he sacrificed his life for you and for me as he bled and died on a cross to forgive us for our wrongdoing, to forgive us for our sin, to reconcile us to God and to give us life eternal. Have you accepted that gift? Have you asked Christ to forgive you? Have you put your faith and trust in him and received the gift of eternal life that Jesus promises to all who trust in him? Have you committed your life to living for him? And when it comes to family, to building a strong family by his grace. God bless you as you make that most important decision to trust in Jesus Christ. I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church. We meet every Sunday at 9:30 at Grace Farms, which is located at 365 Luke's Wood Road in New Canaan, Connecticut. Won't you join us this Sunday for our 9:30 service? Thanks for spending these few minutes with us. Have a great day.